feminism has created a world that benefits men more than it benefits women, and it disadvantages all of us because of that fact. All right, welcome back to the party, everybody. This is Morty, and I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Let's party. So, guys, you know I love Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, all that good stuff. And we've been checking out the clips that he's been putting out on his channel of his show, The Search, that's behind the paywall. Just little clips. And as much of a fan of the Daily Wire as an entity I'm not very familiar with all the personalities. You know, we all know Ben Shapiro. Michael Knowles has his moments, but I don't really watch him regularly. And I've really only been watching Matt Walsh as much as I am realizing how important the pushback against all this woke trans ideology, and he is hyper focusing on that. So, you know, I wouldn't want to make that my whole platform like he is, but definitely appreciate what he is saying. But you know, when it comes to Andrew Klavan, which is another host on the Daily Wire with his own show, I don't know that I've ever seen anything with him. So let's check out a little clip from The Search with Ben Shapiro and Andrew Klavan.
The reaction to the attitude of your generation, which was, we can joke with each other, right? We can like make fun of each other's sex, we can make fun of each other's race, we can make fun of each other's religion. Yeah. The reaction to that was political correctness, which was, you will make fun of nothing. And we will not even, not only will not traffic in stereotypes, if you even make a joke about a stereotype, even if the stereotype is rooted in reality, that makes you a bad person. Yeah. And then when you realize that, wait a second, that new reality doesn't exist, where everybody is an equivalent widget. And
so what they're talking about is the culture's attack on masculinity. And they're talking about the way that men typically interact with each other is a little bit more gruff than what is politically correct.
Every single thing is identical. Then of course we're angry, because it's like, okay, you've told us we can't actually talk about our differences, because that's bad. To talk about our differences is bad. Mm-hmm. And then you've said that there are no differences, but that's a lie. So now this is what makes people angry. It makes people feel bottled up, because we recognize that what you're telling us is a lie, but you've also told us that if we say that it's a lie, then we have transgressed, right? The attempt to silence is what generates the anger, right? It didn't go back to warmth, because you're not allowed to make the warm joke. If I make the warm joke, then it doesn't matter. Like if I make a joke about women, I have to think twice. Like, am I going to get boycotted now if I make a joke about women?
Don't do that.
Whereas I can make jokes about women in front of my wife, no problem.
Of course.
And they just came out with an article, or no, it wasn't an article. I saw a tweet or TikTok, I saw something about some girl complaining that she's the only woman who works in her job. And as of late, all the men have completely pulled back and don't really interact with her. And she knows that they're respectful and they're trying not to, you know, do anything that could be misconstrued, but it's isolating. People want this interaction. Of course, these types of interactions can go too far, and that's, you know, been a huge issue. That's why we had the Me Too movement. But we put, a spotlight on that issue, and we continue to focus on it. But unfortunately, I think we continue to over-focus on it.
Of course, and make jokes about men, and that's how it works. And with my friends of other races, we make jokes about each other. I mean, Jeremy's a Christian, I'm a Jew. All we do all day is just make jokes about each other's religion. I mean, but you can't do that in public, because if you do that in public, then people immediately hit you with the you have harmed someone narrative.
Oh, they pretend to take it seriously, so as if you had really said something.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's part of this semantic obfuscation as well. I talk about semantic obfuscation all the time, using words in a way that they are either not meant to be used or changing up the meaning, all that kind of stuff. So another part of semantic obfuscation, other than using Nazi as not just somebody who was part of the Nazi party, but somebody who happens to disagree with your opinion. Another part of that semantic obfuscation is taking things purposely out of context and attributing malice where there is none.
Exactly.
And this, you know, this is the way men form bonds and relationships, is that if you get out of the system that you're in, say you're in the military, say you're a group of writers in a writer's room, whatever you're in, you make fun of them. You know, you start to rib each other, and that's kind of the way you start to establish like who's going where and where the boundaries are and all this stuff. And then you become like this kind of machine. Men become this band of people. If you can't do that, men can't actually mature. They can't mentor each other. They can't, teach each other what each one knows and pass it on.
That's a huge part of male development and maturity, is looking up to other men who have it figured out. And that's a huge problem, as we can see that there's a lack of male role models, that people are looking up to, like the Fresh and Fits of the world. And even though I don't think that the messaging of Andrew Tate is all that bad when in its totality, not the greatest person to be a role model to 11-year-olds. If you don't let men be men, then the wrong men will become celebrities. That's how you get Dylan Mulvaney. Guys, if you're enjoying this, make sure to join the Discord, Indian Jesus Discord. The party rages on. It never ends, 24/7. We are in there hanging out. And after every live show, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, we go in and have a panel discussion. It's not you just type in. We're all in a room together. You can cam up, you can not cam up, but it is a great time. Make sure you join. Link in the description and the pinned comment.
It's very crippling. Humor, to not be able to use humor like that is very crippling.
One of the
This is
things
what makes
that's
comedians.
been amazing and weird is that I think there's a fundamental misconception by women about the quote unquote patriarchy and the patriarchal society. And what it led to was this.
Really? You think that women don't understand the patriarchy? The patriarchy. I mean, I guess, that's an understatement of the century.
We've talked about sort of the false feeling about what men are. Men are brutal and terrible and evil, and everything about men is bad. And when they evidence masculinity, that's because all masculinity is in some form toxic and aggressive. And if we just wiped away the testosterone, then all of society would be rainbows and candy.
They literally believe that. They literally believe that any type of masculinity is toxic, when in reality, the toxic behavior that they're talking about results from a lack of masculinity. Masculinity in and of itself is not toxic. So if you're embodying something that is not toxic, then you're not toxic. So if you're doing toxic behaviors, then it's not masculine. Toxic masculinity does not exist.
But George Gilder wrote a book that's now being reissued. Now it's called Men and Marriage. And his basic thesis is that we never lived in a patriarchy. We always lived in a matriarchy. And the reason, but it was good, because the matriarchy, what he meant by that was not that men didn't have power. Men had an awful lot of power. But it's that the fundamental presupposition of civilization was that male patterns of being had to subordinate themselves to female patterns of being.
Male patterns of being had to subordinate themselves to female patterns of living. Anybody disagree with that? Didn't think so.
Meaning that it was male strength, because if males on their own will be evil. Males on their own, just in the wild, they will hunt and they will kill and they will rape and they will do just awful, evil things, which is exactly what you see in hunter-forager societies very often. You don't see a lot of social bonds. You see men who are moving around and sort of abandoning kids, and that's very common.
I don't know how common that is with a society, but I guess he's talking about, if you don't have women, then you don't have a society. So that's a weird statement, because I don't think that it's that inherent, even though historically that was what was done in, wartime and other situations. I don't know if the average man is itching to RP somebody.
And you see it in anarchic societies. It remains very common to this day. So his proposition is that male toxicity is then linked with the female time horizon. So the male time horizon is, when do I next get laid? The female time horizon is, you have sex and then you generate a child over the course of months, and then you raise the child over the course of years. And so the male mode of being has to be subordinated to the female mode of being in order for civilization to be created. So all that aggressiveness gets channeled toward actually the quote unquote matriarchy.
That's actually a very interesting point. But I also want to point out, while he said male toxicity, I would be completely fine with that phrasing, male toxicity. All that means is males acting in a way that is toxic. That's not attacking masculinity. But yeah, he's underlined his point here that, the male timeline is trying to get it in. And in order for that to happen, you have to subordinate to a woman understanding that there's a possibility of pregnancy. Now, as of late, that kind of has been pushed to the side, whether it's because of early on because of birth control and stuff like that. And now because we're so for shishmorshin, or porridge, as we call it on this channel, it's not looking good.
the female mode of actually building, because women are there to build things, but they need men to actually do the building. And so what men trade away is that kind of moment-to-moment autonomy in favor of something significantly more meaningful, but they have to restrict themselves in order to do that, and that's what builds civilization. And so what the feminists did is they said, no, that's the patriarchy. When they made the absurd contention that marriage is a patriarchal institution, when it is precisely the reverse. It is a bunch of obligations for men that would not exist but for the absence of, but for the presence of marriage.
Yep.
When they made that contention, when they succeeded with that contention, then what?
And oh, did they succeed?
What they did is they actually subverted the authority that they had in society, which was connected to their very biology. They subverted that. And now men were unbound from that, and they went back to being what they were in the free battle days.
Yeah, so the what he's saying basically is that feminism has created a world that benefits men more than it benefits women, and it disadvantages all of us because of that fact. Being sexually open benefits men more than it benefits women. We've had enough time. There are now 50, 60-year-old spinsters who thought they could be, a strong, independent, don't need no man, until they hit the wall. And now they're not getting no play. And now they're alone. Then you buy a dog, and you call me the dog trainer. I have very, very, very many clients who are old women who live alone, who've never been married, and their only purpose in life is their dog. Shout out to Kevin Samuels. He just did he didn't do it, but his channel just put out a tribute to him. And if you haven't seen that, definitely go check that out. Shout out to Kevin Samuels. Rest in power.
Yeah. And women were nothing. I mean, and that's what's happening. Women are becoming
nothing. They don't exist.
Men. I mean,
literally nothing. Literally nothing, in the sense that you can't say woman anymore because they don't know what it means. You can't use woman anymore because it's offensive to trans women. So they are literally getting erased.
Like men can be women. I mean,
this to me is like a major theological point, and I think, and as a matter of fact, I think that is what it is. I think it goes beyond. Freud said everything comes down to sex. I think sex actually is a symbol of something way beyond that.
So, okay, I'm gathering he's super religious, which is not a surprise, but let's see how far he takes it.
Men and women become one flesh because there are two ways of looking at the world. The world is actually a multiverse, and this is what I think there is a way that we call the way of power, where it's full of envy and ambition and conflict, which is the masculine way. That is the way we are built. And then there is the way that is the way of love, which is that all of these things are good, but they have to be transformed by love. And I think that when a man and woman become one flesh, that is the kind of unity. You actually are modeling something that is beyond human. And I think that's, if you look, I go back all the time, 500 years. I feel that we are at the end of an argument that has been going on for 500 years when basically the church broke up and they discovered science and all this stuff. And if you go to the Germans, it was all philosophy and it was all about power. It was all, Schopenhauer would just say there's no morality. There's just different power going in. And
are you guys following him? Because he keeps jumping from topic to topic without making a point. I'm trying to pay attention. I'm trying to go along with him. I don't, he's already prefaced this with religion. So I'm as an atheist, I'm like, where is this going? And I'm trying to follow. Then he brought up religion and then breaking away from the church. And then we're looking at the Germans and then we're trying specific German scientists. What are you saying, bro?
There was the will to power, and that was what Nietzsche would talk about, the will to power.
Now we're talking about
Nietzsche. Go to England.
Now we're talking about
everybody's
England.
Gay, obviously.
Now we're talking about gay.
The way they talk. but then you get the poets and
Now we're talking about poetry, guys. What is going on? Are you guys fans of Andrew Klavan? Let me know in the comments. Is this what he's normally like? Is this just more of a laid-back conversation? Is he clearer on his channel? Like, what is going on? I am so very confused.
The poets, especially Coleridge, they love the Germans, but they're poets. And so they have a certain kind of creative anima, more feminine way. And they bring that stuff together into a much more real world. I think, I'm not kidding about this. I think this is why Shakespeare, when he has Portia argue for Christianity in The Merchant of Venice, I think that's why he makes her a woman dressed as a man. He's basically...
What? I have no idea what he's talking about. I'm going to give it a few more, just a couple more exchanges to see if there's anything here. But Based on what I've seen, I am not going to be checking out the Andrew Klavan show.
Basically saying, the mercy that she's talking about is a feminine trait, but the law that she's talking about is a masculine trait. So she's both. In that moment, she becomes both. And I think this is the reason it's tearing.
Putting aside the anti-Semitism of merchant events,
it is anti-Semitic.
But you're correct. I mean, the biblical notion that this goes all the way back to the Bible, the idea that God is both justice and mercy, and that mercy is described in the Bible using feminine language, and justice is described in the Bible using masculine language.
Right.
Is that what he was saying? Thank you, Ben, for being able to put it together. And that, good in the Bible is aligned with femininity and bad is aligned with masculinity. Like, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but Andrew Klavan, you didn't say that, man.
In the Hebrew, that's the way it is. Right? These,
the way it is.
I mean, that is literally in the grammar of the Bible, and the way that you learn about the names of God typically is that the more masculine attributes of God are considered din, and then which is justice, and then the more feminine version is rachamim, which is
I'm gonna be honest, guys. I don't care what they're talking about. I do not care what they're talking about. If you want to wonder why the Andrew Tates of the world became the Andrew Tates of the world, why Fresh and Fit is still Fresh and Fit, it's because when you have conversations about masculinity and young men and all that stuff, this is not the way to do it. That was boring as hell. Without me, you'd be bored right now too. But luckily, I'm amazing. So sorry that wasn't super exciting, but I did my best there. Thank you so much for hanging out. Once again, this is Morty, and I am your host, Lutch, a.k.a. the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Check us out live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Until then, guys, we are out of here. Check us out in Discord. Peace.